All right, gang, we're gonna get rolling. If any of you have questions while we're going here, please feel free, open up the chat and throw your question in there. The Q&A does not work very well on webinars for some reason. It brings it up on a different screen. I have to like scan away from it. So if you guys use the chat button, it works really well. So feel free, throw your questions in there. I really appreciate you being here today. This is our final, is somebody honking at us? This is our final Athletic Solutions of 2021. It was an entire course. If you missed any of the other ones, you guys are signed up and you're here today. You have access to all of them. They are all on our Kajabi website, the TOA website. And once we complete today, we'll be sending out the CEU certificate. I think it's 6 hours, so you get 0.6 CEUs for being here. And remember, those CEUs are accredited and accepted in all other certifying agencies. Some might ask for an overview or something like that. We're happy to provide that. You guys just let us know and we'll get it to you. Basically, it's just the PDF of today's session, which you'll have access to on the website as well. Sharon and Sherry and Kendra and Michael and Kathy and Katie and Joan, Gina, Chris, I appreciate y'all being here. Super cool to have a good live audience. A lot of the other things I've been doing lately, we do them at times where not a lot of people are able to be on here. So I really appreciate you being here and excited for our session. And I'm going to assume that almost everybody knows, you know, if you're with a TOA community, you kind of know me already, but just to give you a very, very brief overview, there's my information and my family, my education. I've been in the industry since 1999, and I've been working with the NSCA, with Be Stronger Fitness, which was our first in-house studio that we had down in Sacramento for almost 10 years. And then with the transition with COVID and everything else, we've now relocated up here into Shingle Springs, about a half hour away from Sacramento. And TOA is now, Training the Older Adult is now our online education and our in-house. We're all kind of under one roof now of Training the Older Adult. And I won't go into my whole story. You guys can hear this in other presentations. I have it a couple times on my YouTube and in the presentations there. More or less, I've experienced a lot as 40 years old, 14 different surgeries, double hip replacements, arthroscopies, dislocation, third hip replacement, back surgery, lung cancer, thyroid cancer, carpal tunnel, hernia, ligament tears, you name it, everything but my knees. Everything else had something going on to it, knock on wood. So I bring with that, here's my picture of my lung cancer. I know it's a little gruesome, won't leave that up there very long, but kind of gives you a little idea of my history. I bring all of that experience and all of that life opportunity and learning into these presentations. And that's really what kind of got us like initially introducing and teaching content in the first place. Many other trainers saying, hey, we see that you work with older populations. How do you work with these pops and what do you do with them so we don't hurt them? And we answer that question so many times, like I just need to kind of create a course or create a webinar, and we created a series and then off we went and TOA was born. So that was a very, very quick, that's normally a 15-minute introduction. That was a very quick overview of us. If you don't know me, it's nice to meet you. Thank you for being here. And I'm excited to share some more info with you. I'm gonna be in front of the camera here or at the screen like this for maybe 25 minutes. And then I have 10-ish or so exercises to show you. We're gonna do 2 article reviews and a couple other things to kind of go over to give you some tools for further information if you would like it, where to get it, and if you want to do some other research on this, you are welcome to. Our big concern, our focus with Ski Strong, and how we even started this in the first place. This was the first group course, group training session, group anything that I offered. I was a one-on-one trainer, 2004. And I noticed that a large majority of my clients, I think 2004 was my first year at the country club, I had maybe 12 clients, and almost all of them were skiers. All of them have had knee injuries and or hip or back injuries from skiing. And all of them were pretty poor in their lower body strength, with exception of Ruth, who was a Masters downhill ski champion. And even with her, we had injuries to deal with. And so I started a evening course that was twice a week, and it was 8 weeks, and 90-minute workouts. They were big. We did a huge warm up and a really good cool down, all kinds of stuff, but it was a good hour of training in the middle of that prepped them basically and brought them up to ski season. And in our area here, the Sierras, usually we start getting snow late November, late November, early December, something like that. It really depends again on the year and kind of where we're at, but typically at least by Christmas, we have, oh, let's see. Katie says my sound keeps cutting out. Is that you or us? Is anyone else getting a cutout from me? Are we sounding okay? If somebody wants to hop on the chat there and let me know. Is anybody else hearing anything like that? Where I cut in and out? All good, Joan says. Okay. Sounds great. All right, thank you, Chris. All good from Kathy. All right, Katie, if you're having issues, maybe pop out and pop back in there and see. It looks like everybody else is doing okay. So I hope that gets worked out for you. I'm so happy that you're here. She sent me a couple messages earlier, and we've really been looking forward to this. So I'm gonna make sure you can hear it. So basically that led us up to, around Christmas, and the goal was so many of these clients hurt themselves from the first day of skiing. Like, it was the first day they went out and they got hurt. And so the question was, well, what did you do before this? And they would all look at me with this puzzled look, like, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, you're 52 and you just go out skiing? Like, well, and they go, well, I ski every year. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's only for like 3 months. And then what? Like, what do you do? What do you do the rest of the year? Well, I ride my bike and, we walk. And I'm like, yeah, but none of that skiing, like none of that even gets you remotely close. So that's where the injuries and the lack of conditioning, like all that comes together. And from the strength coach side of that, it's the perfect storm. You're like deconditioned, overly excited. It's, you're weak and you're hurling down a hill on really slippy stuff with 2 different apparatuses that can go in complete different directions. Like, when I look at skiing, I just look at it and go, why? Like, I don't ski. All I see is injury. I know it's a terrible way of looking at it. It's anything, roller skating, ice skating, rollerblading, water skiing, anything where your feet can go in different directions. I just think of my hips coming apart, right? Like, it's just stuck in my head. I'm like, no. Like, snowboarding, okay, surfing, I get it a little more, but the 2 messes with my head. So I look at that and I'm like, what can I do as a strength coach to really help prepare them for this? So it's really like the big focus is knee and hip. That's really what we got to focus on. And knowing that our clients are going to kind of roll the dice and just go hurling down these, oh, I did this, I don't know the scoring system, but I did this run last year. I'm sure I'll be fine. Okay. We got to make sure you're prepped and ready. So you see this here. The MCL is the most common injury for the knee, followed closely by ACLs. I was able to find stats on that, 17,500 plus every year. That's just in the US. I know Canada has very high, Europe, other places where they ski quite a bit. They have all this information was very consistent. So we know we got to work on the knees, and we're going to have some very odd angled attacks. There's biomechanical advantages and disadvantages to the boots and the angle that they kind of pre-tilt your feet at and your knees at. I mean, I don't want to talk about that today because it's a bunch of information that would be good, but I want to talk specifically about the strength training for it. So understanding that we've got some anatomical stuff to address, I want to try to not simulate, but prepare for that in the weight room. So you'll see some of the exercises I'll show you. We're prepping for not just knee flexion, but because we're going to be like middle foot toe dominant, that forward tilt position, we are going to need to train for that in a bit. And that's where a lot of the shin splints and toe bang and that kind of stuff can come about too. We definitely need to make sure the hips and thighs are prepped, with kind of traditional downhill skiing where they're just, slaloming back and forth nice and easy, where you're doing more like moguls up and down. You're definitely more shock absorber there. The lower back, the core basically are the stabilizing force to keep the body erect and upright. The thighs have to absorb underneath that. And the arms are a pretty vital part to this as well, especially because it's not downhill ski strong, it's ski strong. So we have a lot of clients that cross country ski too. massive involvement with the upper body then. So we don't want to ignore that necessarily, though the lower body does get, a decent amount of the focus. And then notice the other injuries here, head and wrist injuries are your second and third most common. So we always want to address our clients and let them know, like, please make sure you're wearing a helmet and you're being as safe as you can. And to talk about proper falling, quarterbacks and skiers have a lot in common when it comes to falling down. The rule number one is you don't put your hands down, right? Like you try to land on your shoulders or on your side, not necessarily with your arm down, but either a wrist injury, elbow dislocation, shoulder break, arm break. It's difficult to train that into your mind, not to put your arm down when you go to fall. And so that is something that when you discuss it and talk about it ahead of time, at least it's in their brain, they're thinking about it. All right, program wise. So I have this form. Let me go here. Let me do this one right there. So I have this form. This is my strength training 12-week mini cycle, okay, that I have highlighted there. And inside that workout, I'll show you the breakout of this in a second. We have a metabolic conditioning component that we focus on Ski Strong, and then we have our regular conditioning component for our clients that aren't skiers. And so we all do the strength first section, then we do the Ski Strong option if they want it, or regular conditioning. And that comes down into this template that I'm about to show you. So this form that I'm showing you right here in the Word doc, I am more than happy to share that. I can add that in as an attachment with the recording, okay? So keeping that in mind, when you see this is just a slice out of that, okay? So we have a 12-week progression. We're ready to start this October 7th, and we stick to this pretty consistent. You'll see some of the workouts and be like, oh, you did 12s here instead of 10s. Like, it's not going to be perfect, exact. I have some workouts where we're doing that on purpose, certain groups, certain people. But as a general guideline, this is our focus. We have kind of a 3-week buildup to a pretty intense higher volume focus 3 times in a row. So notice 1, 2, 3, and then week 4 is what we call a non-traditional lifting theme. There's a little more bilateral lifting, and look at our volume, 8, 10, 12, 10, 8. That's pyramid, right? Build up, come back down. The other ones are 3 8s, 3 10s, 3 12s. So we're building the volume, okay? We're getting closer, getting stronger, building it more. But those weeks 4, weeks 8, weeks 12, those are like our challenge weeks. The other ones are hard, just not as hard. Those weeks, typically you would say, oh, it's a non-traditional loading or it's a deload week. Let's go a little easier. The other way around. These are the hardest ones that we do. And then weeks 1, weeks 5, weeks 9 are kind of the easier weeks where we taper things down a little bit, maybe more technical lifting, and then we kind of build up again. So everybody does this lifting, all of our clients, no matter what, golf strong, ski strong, garden strong, ADLs, DLF, strength and conditioning, pure strength, they all do these lifts. And this is about 15 minutes, 20 minutes, okay? Beyond that, and here's an example, we're hinging, rowing, split stance, overhead carries, loaded carries. Okay, here's Gary's program that I built for him. The hinge, the row, the press, the pull, the split, the carries. You see all the complexes, what I built in, okay? So that's about 15, 20 minutes. And then the next section, they could either go regular metabolic conditioning, which is usually what we call HIRT, high intensity resistance training. Or if we run in the golf program, which we run year round here in California, if we have gardening, if we have something else going on. The Ski Strong specific, another menu, another board. We are going to do the exact same thing. Notice muscular endurance is our theme. All of them, that's the focus every single week. Bilateral focus for the lifts, pretty much because they're going to be bilaterally engaged, though contralateral staggers or ipsilateral alignment, they're going to be in different positions, but more or less speaking, both feet will be on the ground at the same time. So we're going to do the majority of our training in that position, but it doesn't mean we're not going to do unilateral work. We'll work that in as well. There are some requirements or standards that we're going to have in each one of these workouts that I want to make sure we're checking off. Your rep counts, week 1, 15, week 2, 15, week 3, 20, and so on. Notice the build up, get up to about 25s, then we bring things down a little bit, and then we build them back up. In those last 2 weeks, sets of 30, sets of 30, sets of 35, sets of 4, like we can start to build up to pretty high volume. Now I'll get up to 30s, 40s, 50s, on some workouts. I like to do something like a 50 bridges, 40 lunges, 30 squat jumps. You know, I like to do something that's kind of a high volume, but a repetition style lift that you can burn through pretty quick, right? And so we'll do 50s and 40s, but I'm not having them do, you know, 50 heavy loaded squats or 50, you know, push press. Like, it's just a little too much on the volume on that end. So when we do high volumes like that, it's usually pretty quick, 1-to-1 tempo, body weight, or very lightweight stuff that they can rep out. But knowing that we're starting in the beginning, where we're headed, we got to build a foundation. And I need that to be a fairly linear progression, 15s, 15s, 20s, 20s, 20, 25s. Let's build up, then let's bring it back a little, okay? Back to 15s, let's recover a little bit, and then we'll build back up. When we get up to those 30s, they should be pretty well conditioned, you know, pretty ready for whatever comes their way. And so we look at it and we say, well, 30s, that's a lot. Let's say we do 5 lifts. That's 150 reps of each one. That's, what's that, 650, 700 reps, whatnot, a little more. If we're doing a full workout, that's a lot. And then you're going to say, okay, it's opening season, go ski. You got to think ahead the impacts of what they're going to be doing, what they're going to be doing skiing. You know, and you ski for 6 hours, 8 hours. I mean, our clients are up there all day. And they need to have some endurance. They should be able to push pretty hard, 35, 40, 45 minutes towards the end of this, not be terribly sore the next day, and be ready to turn around and do it again 48 hours. So that's my goal, is when they go up for day one, they do that day of skiing and they come home and they could say, I feel great. I'm not exhausted. I'm not overly sore. My legs aren't shaking. And if I needed to get up tomorrow in the morning and do it again, I would. And in a lot of cases they do, you know, they'll be up there on Saturday or Sunday or something like that. So I judge every season, every Ski Strong season, I judge it by week 1 when clients go up and they ski, and I get the report afterwards. And we've had some seasons, like our COVID season was not great. Okay. We had in 2020, our clients did not get well prepared. They were all sore. We didn't have any injuries, thank goodness, but they were not prepped. We just didn't get a chance to train enough. We just didn't have consistency with closures and everything else. But the years before that, we've always done very well, very consistent, and everybody's ready, you know, when the day comes. So that's our goal, to build that up. You see your sets, you see your load, pretty much just moderate load. Like this isn't something that we're really 80% of your 1 rep. That's not this. This is volume. This is reps. This is, you know, embrace the suck, you know, and the burn is going to be good. We want to suffer good. All those little sayings. We really need volume-esque focus that's just going to burn in structural stability to them. Our totals, those are per lift, basically, as you'll come through. Tempos, 2-to-1, pretty much for all of them. I have a couple of days, couple of lifts where you see some 3-to-1s on here, okay? A couple of days where we'll do some eccentrics. And then recovery, very simple. Like programming, I don't want it to be so detailed and so specific. People like, I can't follow this. Recovery times, as you start going through, like just as ready. Like as soon as you think you're ready to go, let's go. And me as the coach, I can watch this. And if you're, you know, whistling Dixie and looking around, then you're not pushing yourself, right? But if you're gassed and you're red and maybe even turning white and you're pushing yourself to the next, hey, why don't we, you know, tone it down a little bit? And we've got to be able to deliver. But you'll notice that we're just looking at like 3 or 4 extra lifts. It's not a massive, it's not a whole nother workout. This is a portion of the workout. It's a section. And so I want to have a couple of things that I'm going to check off. I want to make sure I'm getting some kind of upper body pull throughout the workout. Doesn't have to be in the Ski Strong section. Just I want to make sure we're getting that. And that's important for us to really make sure the backside of the body is staying strong, be able to kind of support and assist the posterior chain. Pretty vital. A staggered foot position, okay? Staggering the feet in some lift is going to be vital as well. Something where we split the stance, something where we're on one leg, and then something fairly dynamic, okay? And so we're going to set up those boxes, check those off throughout the entire workout. I'd say most of them are going to be in this Ski Strong section. Go for it, right? Like that's the section where we're going to want people to push and get after it. And so we have a traditional Metcon that our clients can do, metabolic conditioning section, or they have the Ski Strong. The difference between them is you're going to have higher volume on the Ski Strong section for sure. I'd say 2-to-1 almost. I mean, it's going to be drastically more work, Obviously not in the beginning. We're going to baby step in because we hammer people day one, right? It'll be way too much. So we're going to progress in, but volume is going to be big. The majority of the work will be in the lower body. And I do like to look at the lower body training, at least, if not weekly, but really in every workout. I'd love to get something that addresses kind of the high end of the squatting range of motion, something that's kind of mid-range of motion work, and then something that's pretty low. And it's not that you're going to be super low when you're skiing, okay? It's that there's a potential for you to be very low when skiing. And so I'm not going to say that my 70-year-old clients are doing jumps and landing, but they might have opportunities where they do get airborne. They go off of something they didn't see coming. And when they land or when they impact, is their body prepared for it? Can they do a deep squat and survive it? Do they not throw their back out when it happens? And I'm just talking about a bump, right? Or not like, hey, let's go off the 12-footer and see how it goes. We also have, skiers who are in a deep tuck and they're going for speed and they're having fun and going after it. Whatever type of skiing, that's you, right? That's your choice. It's just my job as a strength coach to help prep you. And I do like isometric holds, but I like to do them a little bit non-traditional. Everybody defaults to the wall sit right away, which is fine. It's a great one for building foundations. I like to address a lot of my holding in different angles of attack, and I'll demo those in a moment. And this is one of my favorite sayings, is suffer good, okay? My favorite saying is discomfort brings change, okay? Basically, clients, I'll tell them, you need to get uncomfortable when you do this lift. And they're like, what does that mean? And I'm like, it doesn't hurt, but it's not comfortable, okay? If it hurts you, we're going backwards, we're gonna cause an injury, etc. Like when you're doing this, my knee hurts right here, ow, ow, that piercing pain, this hurt, that's hurt. When you're doing a pulse squat and your thighs are just going, please stop, this is just miserable, that's discomfort. And that's where I want you to get comfortable, right? Like you gotta find comfort in discomfort, because that's where change will occur. That's when you're really going to see a significant change in your strength and your stability and your endurance, etc. So we got to get comfortable being uncomfortable, because we know that's where change is going to start to occur for us. Now, this article, pretty cool one, 2013. Hi, baby. Got all your stuff? Okay, love you. This guy here, 2013, Jay Hadron and a couple others. Jeff Volek is a strength coach. Where is he at now? I'm not sure, but really good article, very, very detailed. Breakdowns like I have not seen. If you guys go to this link and look at this, see the little metrics thing right here? They've got like 24 different metrics that show VO2 max. I mean, it just anything and everything you can think of. It's a very detailed program. But we're also talking about alpine skiing racers, right? Like people that are doing this and trying to get scholarships and go to the Olympics and that kind of thing. So I wanted to show you that information so you could see how involved this is and how we're pretty right on. Like we're pretty accurate in what we're doing. They're benching, they're deadlifting, and they're pushing, pulling, hinging, rowing, everything we just talked about. They're doing cleans, they're doing snatches. Now, because I work with older pops, we don't do a whole lot of jumping or bounding. My clients don't really leave the ground a whole lot. We'll do drop squats, we'll do pop squats, right? Where you literally leave the ground a quarter of an inch, you just move your feet. And that's just so we can work on some power work. But for the most part, our power stuff comes from letting go of things, throwing things. I love throwing stuff. Clients love throwing stuff. So that's one big difference. But outside of that, there's not a whole lot of difference. If I showed you the workout we did today, because we've been cheating a little bit. Like, yeah, it's launching October 7th, but I've got people that are already doing, I'm doing some insider espionage, ski strong training without letting anybody else know. I got a couple clients who are my test, my guinea pigs right now. And we're going through to make sure these workouts are flowing good. If you looked at those workouts, you'd be like, yeah, this is pretty accurate. It's right in line. And you see the deep squat range of motion, the single squat from a parallel position, the high quarter squat, the single legs, right? The duck walks. What we just talked about, 3 different ranges, 3 different, aspects in which we're going to address in the squat. And this is programming things we put together prior to reading this article. 2004, I've been doing this. This came out in 2013. it just wanted to bring in like good validity that it's not just me making shit up. This is, this is good programming and what we put in. This article is more for the recreational downhill skiers. My buddy Chat Williams. Chat and I are the only two fellows in the NSCA that are not doctors. we're misters on the list. There's 86 fellows in the NSCA, and we're the only two that aren't doctors. So we're really the only two that are not researchers, right? That are practitioners in the field. And I love this article because it's written like he's got a regular gym, strength and conditioning gym, and works with a lot of kids and programs and works with older adults too, mostly youth. And you see a lot of the good programming. I want to give you some good examples. And this is a shareable article. If you're not an NSCA member, you can still see this, and I will take you through that, okay? Or I will share that too. All right, so here are the ones. I've got 30 minutes, 35 minutes. We're gonna go through this, and I'm gonna show you the different staggered variations in the way. Now, I'm gonna use fairly minimal equipment. I'll show you some fancier stuff, but I want you to be able to do this with just stuff you have in the gym. It doesn't have to be super fancy, but it can be, is my point. You can make some pretty cool stuff out of this. So I'm going to show you some different staggered squat variations, a skier squat, which is a mobility / exercise. It just depends on how you implement it. That can make it more like a can opener, mobility warm up, or a miserable thigh and hamstring burning experience in a burnout. The lateral holds and some of the ISO holds I'm going to show you in just a typical body weight, and then some additional pieces that can make them a little more sporty, a little more sport specific. And now I want to remind you that we're not trying to replicate sport movement with load. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is learning to develop strength and angles of attack that you will experience on the slopes, okay? So I'm not a fan of replicating sport in the weight room. Oh, you swing a baseball bat. Well, let me give you a 2-pound baseball bat and let you swing. That's going to make you worse. I will do a disservice to you. But in the world of skiing, we're going to have angles that your knees, your ankles, your hips are going to go to that you don't get in a regular bilateral squat to parallel or below. We need to address that. We need to prep and build that into what we're doing. So that's where some of these angles of attack will come in. Single leg work and alternating single leg work is really where you're going to see a lot of the benefit. Split squats. I've got kind of a 45-degree angle split squat I'm going to demo as well. Pulse squats are one of the foundational lifts that you can do almost any day, every day. Glute rollers, iso holds, hamstring work, posterior chain. And then some upper body work. I'm going to show you something called a ski start, but it's also the Skierg, okay, which is the Skierg, the Skierg, as we call him. And then I do want to talk to you just like the last minute about our TOA talks that are coming up. Dan John, Lindsay Vestal, Pete McCall, Evan Osar, myself, a lot of great speakers. Really hope you guys hop in on that. And if you're a TOA Select member, you still have the discount is available to you guys. CEU approved, all that good stuff. So can't wait for that event. That's going to be a lot of fun. It is NSCA CEU approved only for live. We cannot get it approved for recordings. So it's only for live attendees. You can watch it afterwards and get all the info. That's all great. But as far as earning the CEUs, you have to be live for that. And unfortunately, there was nothing I could do about that to change it. Okay, team. So the staggered squat. Staggered squat can be created with bumper plates, with boxes, whatever you want to kind of put in. I like these plyos. These boxes are probably my favorite in terms of how expensive they are and the investment. They're not cheap. If you've ever bought these, they are very expensive. What you see here, these two sets of 2 6s and 2 12s, that's like $1,200 worth of stuff. I mean, but I can tell you an hour ago, one of my clients took a stumble, right? I caught her, but she hit her shin against it and was absolutely completely fine. Where on a wood box, it would have scraped all the skin off. You'd see the bone of the shin, and she probably would have flipped out and, would have had a very negative experience. So considering we're going to be performing repetitions and lifts on these a lot, especially with Ski Strong training, I advise you get on some soft stuff, right? And it's worth the investment. I literally use these every day, every hour. That's how much use. As much as our bands, as much as a kettlebell, we use these a lot. So a staggered squat is basically what I'm doing at this moment. One foot is elevated 6 inches, the other one is on the floor. So I'm going to show you what most people try to do. They try to like shift and level up. Let me tell you, as soon as you put your foot up there, you've already made the shift and your body is already leveled up, or else I would be like this, right? Like I would be in this position if I weren't leveled, okay? And squatting from there is difficult. As soon as you put your foot up and you're like, well, I got to be 50-50, you've already made the shift. So we'll see people like over shift and over, you've already shifted, just stay here. And as you squat now and you're performing the movement, I'm already getting the overload that I wanted, okay? You got to think in this in terms like when I was training Frank and I was doing a lot of mountaineering, you know, this was a decade ago. Frank was my guy. I trained to go, he climbed all 7 summits and he climbed up Everest twice. The greatest accomplishment an athlete of mine has experienced. Athlete, not client, but athlete. And he goes, you know, these step-ups are great, but it's not what we actually do when we're out climbing. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he goes, we'll be on like 40, 50, 60 degree angles doing step-ups. And you've just got me facing straight ahead on a 12-inch box and thinking it's going to replicate. That's not the case. So if you take a regular bilateral squat and lower me down, and I'm here, and now draw a line, okay, from my right heel to my left, you've got about a 15 degree, a 20 degree, I don't know, staggered, right? I've got a slight incline. So if you can envision me on a hill, taking a ski, I'm gonna do this for a visual, doing a turn, right, where I'm skiing in and I'm sliding in between my turns. Basically, we're replicating that demand without having the client shift like I just did. So when you just elevate a foot, we automatically create that slide overload that replicates an incline. And you can do this with a 1-inch, 10-pound plate, 6-inch box, a 12-inch box, an 18-inch box. Depends on what kind of skiing, right, they're going to be doing and how steep this is. I wouldn't really go any higher than like 10 to 12 inches. 6 is pretty much home base. We can do a lot of work here. You can goblet squat. You can ruck, put the pack on. You can do all kinds of stuff and have them get pretty good work here. And the goal with this is to just work kind of that natural overload of the high leg. And as I'm squatting, I'm thinking 50-50 here, and I'm working through my range. My left leg gets to fully extend. My right one doesn't. If I do fully extend, now I've done my tilt again, right? My funky tilt. So basically, my left leg is working as my primary motor to push. My right leg is kind of sitting in a controlled range and never gets to fully extend. So my left leg is doing quad, hamstring, glute extension, and my right leg's just basically pumping quad extension, right? So it's like doing a quad extension right leg machine and doing a leg press on the other. And so as you're doing that, you just start feeling this huge pump on that right quad. What we want, if you're doing long turns, we're getting those angles of attack. Now, we do have a lift in a staggered squat where we'll create shifts and we'll ask the client, shift into the squat and overload from right to left, Again, more of an advanced move. I'd say week 6 and up, we'll start adding in shifts. Shifting gets difficult because the client's in a deep flexed position, especially with the ball and socket joints. When you start to shift and move people about, when they're in deep flexions, a lot of the time the alignments of the tendons, the ligaments, the bones, the joints, they're not comfortable and they're not designed to stay in that deep flex and then move about and shift about. So we'll get a lot of people that will start to over-dominate with their back, or they'll start to get hip pain when they start shifting in deep flexions. That's why I'm saying you got to build that strength, build this range of motion and this comfort of being in the stagger. Build that for a couple of weeks, a month before you start doing anything like that. So there really isn't a need to shift. I know I've said this 8 or 10 times now, but again, I still see people do it. All right, now you're there, load up that top leg. You've already made the shift. Just put your foot up and squat like normal, okay? And our clients are like, when am I supposed to start shifting? There isn't, just squat. It's already happened for you, okay? That's probably the best exercise I can tell you out of the entire list. Like, what am I going to get the most return for? That's it. Staggered squats, money. They're going to get what you need, angle of attack, address that musculature, and obviously you do your 15 and then turn around, do your 15 this way, right? So we get both sides. Coming out of that, the skier squat. Skier squat, was a mobility exercise that was taught to me by a buddy of mine, and his name will come to me in just a second. Every time I need to get his name, I blank. I can't understand why. And it's because I know like I know like 4 people that all have the same first name. So I always, Johnny Gillespie. I know 100 Johnnies. And so Johnny Gillespie is the guy that taught me this. So when I was having, I had my hip surgeries, my arthroscopies before my hip replacements, had my arthroscopies, and I was just like, man, I'm not having a lot of mobility. Johnny showed me this, it helped a ton. And then I started doing it with my skiers, and then we started to do it longer wind, like longer sets. And my people were just like, holy cow, does this, I mean, number one, does it light us up, but it's great for flexibility and mobility. So I'm gonna show you seated, and then I'll move out into space, okay? So when you do the skier squat, feet flat on the floor, elbows, the key to the skier squat is the elbows have to stay in contact on the thighs. And then outside of that, I just teach it in the thinking position, meaning they put their thumbs on their chin. You don't have to hold that, but you do have to keep your elbows on your thighs, okay? So in a sit to stand version of it, I basically push my elbows down, and when I'm ready, I'm gonna drive my heels down into the floor, and I'm just gonna kind of pummel my hips up and back, and then come back to the seated position, pummel the hips, and return. And so I'm just kind of pushing up into like a good morning position or a hinged RDL, and then I lower back down into the squat. And so mobility wise, I'm getting this, eccentric stretch on my hamstrings every time I come up. Big stretch and then a release, a big stretch and a release. And the exact same thing can be said for the quads, but on the opposite. As I'm in my deep squat here, my quads are eccentrically stretched. Now they release. Now they're stretched. Now they're released. Okay. The glutes aren't really getting to change a whole lot, but they are on and they're active. So think of this like a pulley. It's hamstrings and glutes and hamstrings and glutes and hamstrings, and you just keep doing that back and forth, and you kind of seesaw into this great discomfort. and it's a good discomfort. So once the client can show me they can do this pummeling hip without rounding their back, and that'll happen a lot in the beginning. If this is too deep, okay, if I made it like an inch or two deeper, I wouldn't be able to stick my butt up and then bring my hips all the way down and keep my back arched and flat. I would round over a little bit. So we have to find a 2 parallel position eventually. Once they can do that, and they're like, I can do 20 or 30 of these, back doesn't hurt, then we can move out into space. And it's just the same lift from here, elbows on the thighs, but now I can work deeper, okay? So I can pummel the hip and I can sit deep into this guy. Pummel my hip and sit deep. And so each time I just kind of work that big eccentric stretch, and I'm trying to keep as flat a back every time I come up, okay? You'll be a little round, right? I'm not the most flexible person, but here I'm just coming up on 10 and I'm already feeling everything screaming and pumping at me. And this is just one of those things, like I just can't get out of this discomfort position, but I'm right at home and kind of building that higher muscular endurance, sport-specific strength that's going to transfer very well. Concerns or areas to think about: when people are hinging up, when they fatigue, hamstrings will shorten and the back will round. And so the back will start to hurt. That's why I'm saying master it, sit to stand version, give them an opportunity every time to turn that light switch on and off. Practice, it's good, shut it off. It's good, shut it off. Once we're out here, now we're on the dimmer. There's no on and off. It's deeper, it's higher, it's deeper, it's higher, it's on, constant. It's just a little more intense and a little less intense. And you're just working that back and forth. So there's, and if you're doing these at home and you're feeling that, right? You're feeling this burn in there, it's drastic. You guys, some of the things that we'll put together, I'm just like, man, if I didn't love you guys, I would think that I hate you. Like the way that I'll be like, do 30 of these guys, 15 on each leg, give me 30 walking lunges, and then give me 30 ski squats. And when you do that, when you do those 30 at the end, you're like, you son of a, like it's the most miserable, because it's the exact same muscle groups, but all these different planes and all these different actions. Like there's great benefit, but it's just the same thing over and over again, and it's miserable. I mean, it really gets tough. But the awesome part is when those sets of 30 and they just start crushing and they're like, this isn't so bad. And I'm like, just wait. Like, just wait till you get up there. And you're gonna be like, I can do this all day. That's what all this is for. This is paying the dues. I'll steal the rocks line, right? You're paying your dues right here to get these legs strong. So when you go up there, you can just play all day, right? And so when we go through this and people really see, even just after a week, they're like, damn, my legs are sore and they're getting strong. They get so into this and they're like, they can't wait for the Ski Strong version. We'll even have clients that will like, they don't dog it, but they don't go as hard in the first section with the deadlifts or anything, because they're like, well, I know you're going to do a shit ton of volume on us over here. I don't want to wear myself out. I'm like, I'll never ask you to do more than what you're capable of. So I don't get too far into that. Okay, lateral holds. These are awesome. So I'll show you here. Okay, these holds. Let's think of it like a wall sit, but on an angle. Okay, my alignment position. You have to remember when you're doing a hold for skiing and squatting, these are different foot positions. We don't ski with our feet 15 degrees out or else we'd rip in half, right? Everything's got to stay straight. So I need to be in good alignment, straight alignment. And you have to understand that most clients are not going to squat well in this position. So what we're looking for in this alignment are isometric holds, not a lot of reps, because we're not in the best position necessarily to do a lot of reps. We want to build the strength for it. And what I mean by that is that, when skiing, you're not doing repetitive range of motion squats. You're just isometrically holding while you ski. So that's why different positions, okay? So toes are straight. I'm going to come down into, let's call it a quarter squat position. And then I'm going to laterally shift over and see the wall coming into view here. I'm going to get into my side position and now watch my feet. Can you guys see that? You see my feet? So what I've done now, and this came directly from my master's downhill skier. She goes, we would never leave our feet flat while taking an edge. We would take our feet with us. See what that does to my knees? Okay, I know I'm a little off screen here, but hopefully you guys are seeing this okay, right? The knee alignment, ankle alignment, all that, you have to take your feet with you. So this is a position, when we do these little lateral isometric holds and these leans, we're building strength in the ankle, transverse arch of the foot, all the musculature around the ankle, the knee, the glute, the hip, and then I'm getting some good stability here. And just holding, I'm burning up through both quads. I'm feeling my outside glute, right? But I'm not just leaning here, I'm pushing. Like I'm trying to drive this wall and push across it. And that's what's given me the edge involvement with my feet to be able to kind of tilt into this. We started adding that application. Our result from our clients talking about foot and ankle discomfort on day 1, day 2, that pretty much went away because we started to basically mimic what their feet are going to do in the boot, right? When they're on these edges, when they're in these holds. So when I talked about that sport-specific application, this is what I'm talking about, is that we're trying to get our clients into positions that they will be in. Now, again, how many of your clients are going to be cutting an edge this deep, right? Maybe not all of them, but some. Let's train for this, and anything above it is gravy. But if they get in that position, they can survive it. So you can do that leaning into a wall. You can also do it with some really nice super bands, like heavy duty. This is 1.5 inches. So this is like a 120, I think, tension wise. Basically, I can just hug this guy into my goblet position, and I can sit and shift, turn my blades here, and I can just hold. And I can hold my position. You can go to a single, and I can kind of hold my position. And now I've got some good core involvement. I've got some upper body engagement, not necessarily leaning against the wall. The band is supporting me, but I'm still having to hold that isometric position. And then the band support is just there so I don't fall all the way down. You don't really want to make this lighter, right? Because I do need the support to hold me. I'm 240, like I need that weight on there. What I want to do to advance that is either to get deeper or to hold longer, and eventually you can add some weight to it. Now we haven't, and this will be the first season where we're going to work with overload training in terms of vests. I have 2 vests now that we're going to put on our clients. I have a ruck, a backpack. We have plate holders. We're going to work a lot of different isometric holds, these alternating single leg RDLs, a lot of these with just an extra 10 or 15 pounds on the body, which changes everything. And I know it's overloading, right? Good bone density, all that. It's just going to change the amount of recruitment and work they have to do on what we typically would do as just body weight work. It's going to increase that work capacity without them really knowing it. Yes, they'll know the vest is on, but it's not weights that you're holding in the hand and like, this is the hardest RDL. I can see these. And once it's just hooked to you, you're just like, this is just weight I got to deal with now. So that's going to be a good introduction and a good change for us, I think, coming up here this year. In rucking and all that, if you guys haven't watched my video on rucking, please check that out if there's any interest. It's pretty cool. It's been a great experience for me to have something as an injured individual who's permanently, fake hips, back, all that, permanently unable to run and jump and bound and throw and do all the things that I love. This has given me a home in terms of sporting. Okay. All right, let's get into some single leg stuff. So the single legs, I love RDLs, very quick progression. Client learns to hinge, okay, RDL, Romanian deadlift, stiff leg deadlift, whatever you want to call it. Then we go to a kickstand. So I'm up on my toe on the rear leg, push my hip back, push my hip back. So I get good at kind of overloading the front leg, but I don't have to worry about balance yet. Then I do a kickstand with a kick out and a return. Kickstand with a kick out and a return. So I learn how to pull up on a single, and then eventually I just lock that rear leg and I work my single leg RDL, okay? Now, if I get in good mechanics and I get into a good position where I can manipulate my body weight well and I feel comfortable, then I can start to load bands, dumbbells, kettlebells, whatever you want. Just quick cues for the single legs. Front toe, front leg, floor leg is straight. Rear leg, there's a very big tendency to open this toe, which causes you to open your hip, which causes you to open your chest, which causes you to over-recruit and use your back. This is something that people do. It's not malicious intent, but they do it on purpose. They do it as an action to try to stay balanced. So the cue we want to use is corkscrew the back leg, or point your rear foot at the floor leg. See how I've kind of corkscrewed it in and I'm pointing it. I know black shoes on black floor, okay, but I'll show you a rear shot here in a second. Point it in, so when I'm doing that single leg, it keeps my hip closed. It'll keep my shoulder closed, keeps everything closed. Another cue to help that is to hold the weight in the contralateral hand. And what I mean is from the floor leg, okay? So if my left leg's on the ground and I hold the weight in my right hand, there's a greater tendency for me to stay closed because the weight is here, versus if it was my left hand, I could open and that would lend to the rotation. So you can set your clients up for success two ways. Corkscrew the leg, which a lot of people don't have great kinesthetic awareness, and they hear that and they see you and they're just like, I can do that. A lot of them can't do that. But when you just put the weight in the other hand, that will naturally, for most, it'll naturally kind of close the hip, close the shoulder and help you, okay? The rear shot I was talking about, sorry for the butt shot. You see the foot, just turn it in a little bit and keep it there as you go through your range. Ideally, that'll keep the hip closed. We maximize high hamstring, glute, the stabilizers through the foot, the ankle, the knee, and the hip, getting a ton of work. When we do that, you're on a single stabilizing leg. If I get really good on both legs, then I can start to alternate. And this is where I really get a good benefit of like a speed skater approach, okay, from one foot to the next, but I'm doing a single leg stability balance lift. And the reason we want to work this is in the ability of turning skis, not that you literally lift one foot up, change direction, put it down, but there's a shift in, okay, as I make this turn, I'm going from left to right. I feel a dominance, I'm going right to left. I feel a dominance, a shift. And so we get these transitions from one strong dominant leg to the other, even though we're bilaterally engaged. So what I want to kind of mimic with that is, let's create the overload. Transition, let's create the overload. Transition, let me stop it, create the overload. Shift, stop, create the overload. It becomes a very challenging lift in terms of just, can I balance? Can I stop that lateral momentum? Can I stay stable enough? And then you can start to make it a little dynamic in terms of pushing off and trying to get out there and stick it, pushing off, trying to get out there and stick it, and you'll feel a whole different level of glute activation, balance, focus from your client, these get tough. And so we'll line up cones. I'll have a cone that's like a foot apart. And so they just start like that, right? Just 12 inches. And then we'll go 16 inches, 16 inches, and then 20 or 18, right? And we'll go out by 6 inches or whatever you want. But you give them a target that encourages them to push off. And the recovery from a push off single leg stable, right, to not just fall over or fall back onto the other leg, there's a high level of focus and engagement to like stick that leg, hold it. Now let's go through that range of motion, corkscrew, keep it closed. And now let's push off of that one, stop, hold it, right? There's a lot that goes in. And so I really enjoy those. If it's gonna be dynamic, we don't do weight, okay? Just not super comfortable leaving the ground with weight in the hands, not necessarily with an older client, more or less with anyone. It's just a difficult position. That's a pretty advanced movement. I wouldn't say never, but just not a high, it's a very high risk lift, let's say. But if I'm gonna be able to just step, okay, I could hold 2 weights, do my single, step to the next one, do my single, just that slight overload of an extra 5 pounds in each hand, 7.5 pounds in each hand, something like that for a good amount of volume that will really add up and help quite a bit. All right, the angled split squat, okay? I'm gonna talk to you in terms of angles, and I'll talk about like positioning on the clock as well. So we're gonna place our front foot at 0 or 360 or noon. The rear foot is gonna go back in a split squat, but I want you to turn it to 2 o'clock, okay? And now the position for this is it stays, but I want both knees to follow their alignment as you come down in the split squat, okay? It's not an overload forward. We're not shifting back. I'm 50-50. I'm on my rear toe and I'm on my front foot, mid-dominant heel, and we just stay in this position while we perform our split squat. So basically what I'm kind of getting is like a left leg split squat, lunge in place, a right foot like a toe dominant sumo, okay? Now, why would this be an applicable lift for skiers? Do you guys see that first picture I showed you of that person that fell? Okay, this is a very common falling position in skiing. One foot goes that way, the other foot's going this way, and you're either buckling in, you're falling out, you're tilting out. We start to get basically an adductor at risk lift, or excuse me, adductor at lift experience. Are your legs, adductor dominant, capable of pulling that other leg in so you don't do the banana splits and things blow apart? Can you pull back and try to recover and fall in one piece, okay? You're probably gonna fall. It's like, but let's try to fall in the best position. And banana splitting is not the best position. So this is kind of a glute adductor quad dominant split squat. And the addition we can add to this is putting the mini band above the knees while you perform this lift. So I'm gonna get my adductor stretch. I'm gonna get my abductor activation with the band. I'm gonna get my quad and glute work as I'm going. I'm up on my toe on that rear leg. I'm getting quite a pump from that, pump in terms of activation, feeling that work. But I'm engaging and training in positions that are a little awkward, a little open, but that's a recovery position in skiing that I need to train and be strong in, okay? So just 15 degrees, 20 degrees, whatever that's gonna be. Oh, maybe it's more than that, 45 degrees, something like that. But go to 2 o'clock, go to 10 o'clock, get your pivot, and maybe a tiny bit longer than you would normally do a split squat. Just gives you a little more range to work with. Really enjoy those, okay? Challenging, technical, great return. And fairly safe as long as your people have good ankles and good knees. Let's squash, I have time for this, maybe 5 minutes over if you guys are okay doing that. The knee over toe argument, hopefully we can all kill that now, right? Like that's no longer a gigantic concern. If your knees go beyond your toes when you squat, I'm picking something up off the floor, my knees go beyond my toes, okay? I mean, rarely are we not in a position through our daily life getting up and down like this where our knees aren't gonna be, I mean, think of catchers, these positions that they're in, yeah, they get flat-footed, but knees are still there. Every weightlifter you watch, I mean, on a regular occurring basis, and they're trained to do that, it's not a bad thing. It's just a range of motion we have to be strong at. So I want to think about that in terms of that odd angle, the angled split squat. It's okay to be on that toe. It's okay to be on that toe and to do that split squat. You're not exposing or going to hurt your knee. It's just the same. If I were pointing straight, is this any greater risk than if I turn that foot out and perform the same action? No, it's just a different angle of attack for me. If my hip couldn't rotate to that position, then I would say we're probably going to risk something, but it's all good. And there's enough injuries that occur that way that I feel like that's vital enough to train. And it's not a high risk, but that is something people ask on. It's okay to be up on that toe? Absolutely. Okay for the knees to drip? Absolutely. That is okay. Again, don't have them do 3 sets of 30 on day 1. We'll build into it. All right, the pulse squat. Pretty much what it sounds like, okay? You're pulsing, and in the pulse shouldn't go higher than 50%. So let me consider, and again, we'll talk in range. This is 100% of my height when I squat, and let's say that is 0. That's as low as I can get without sacrificing something, okay? My spine, my hip position, whatnot. So what I'm gonna do from here is I'm gonna go 50% back down, 50 down, 50 down, 50 down. And that's my pulse squat, okay? And this is home base for me. Sets of 15, sets of 20, sets of 30. You just work the pulse. What I don't want is a bounce. And you know what I mean? You get people that are so flexible, like they can just bounce in here and they're like, I don't feel anything. It's because you're just bouncing up and down and like your ligaments are holding you and just kind of slinging you around. We have to be in a muscularly engaged position, and you pulse through the lift. You don't just bounce up and down on the muscles, okay? I'm not gonna say that you won't feel it on that other one, but I'll tell you, you'll feel it more doing what I'm talking about, doing the pulse. So here's 100, here's 0, and my set begins. I'm doing 15, let's go. Halfway, return, halfway, return. See, I'm still muscularly engaged, and I'm controlling my ranges, but I'm not bouncing. This is gonna get a lot of good work for you. Toes, medium, midfoot, medium, heels kind of heavy, right? Work through that good squat. Arm positions. You can do arms out, zombie, arms in, okay, the fawns, hey, right? Fawns, hands behind your back, just anywhere but on your hips. And never allow my clients to put their hands on their hips. No matter what lift, no matter if they're tired. As soon as you do this, what happens? Shoulders roll, posture pops forward, okay? It's a terrible position. I love it. Love resting my arms here when I'm tired. Let the arms go, keep your shoulders back, no hands on the hips. Okay, let me go ski starts and Skierg, and then I'll finish with the hamstring curls. The Skierg, everybody goes, I don't have one of those. I'll show you one, you do have one. I'm just gonna show you, let me show you on this guy first. Okay, Skierg, handled position. There are many options on how to do this. There's butterflies and all kinds of different techniques. In terms of getting the best for our skiing component, basically we're gonna engage in a hinge like an RDL, and I want you to pull through your arms like you're doing a straight arm lat pull down, okay? So I'm gonna engage, hips are gonna go back, straight arm lat pull down past me, and then return to the top. Hinge, pull past me, return to the top. Hinge, pull past me, past. And I wanna get into this little mechanic like a kettlebell swing for me, countering the hip, contact, finish, contact, finish, contact, finish. And it's a little robotic, but it's a good position where you're gonna feel with each hinge a big eccentric hamstring stretch, a big tricep lat rhomboid extension at the end. You're gonna feel the entire backside of your body, as opposed to, and not saying this is wrong, it's just a different technique where the arms will bend and the knees will bend, and it's more of an up and down, okay? I see that a lot in CrossFit, a lot of cross styles of training, where you're trying to maximize your range, which I get because you're going for meters. This is a different technical approach to get more of a ski simulated arm engagement and to get that hamstring play that I want. Because the pulse squats and the step, a lot of this stuff, very quad dominant. So if I can get some good eccentric hamstring release on these guys, on these counters, and I'm gonna get, do 250 meters. That's probably gonna be 60, 70 pulls, right? Or whatever it is. You'll get reps with that. So now how you can replicate this at home or in your gym is, if you don't have a Skierg the Skierg. You can use your bands, whatever band you want. High anchor, thumbs up grip, starting up tall. I'm gonna hinge, pull back and apart and return. Hinge, pull back and apart, return. I'll turn towards you here so you can see what I'm doing as I start picking up speed. Okay, hinge and pull, hinge and pull, hinge and pull. And so I'm getting that same idea, same action. We did these with our clients today. And all of them, I heard them all, we were online, I heard all of them go, oh, that's the hardest one. Or, oh, this one really sucks. It's very cardiovascular, but you feel that entire posterior chain working on you, okay? All right, last couple minutes, let me wrap up on this. The glute roller and the iso hold. My glute roller here. I like this guy. A lot of my clients struggle with this right out of the gate. And they feel cramping. As with, come here, buddy. As with glutes, hamstrings while bridging, the first thing, they go, oh, my hamstrings. It's probably the first time you've actually done it correctly. And that's where clients go, oh, I hate doing these. I cramp every time. If we continue to improve and get better at this, you won't cramp anymore. And we'll have great benefit from it, okay? So glute roller, you could use a towel on a wood floor. I use the tank. Okay, Sharon, you have a tank. A couple of you have tanks now. Put the tank down, put it in neutral, put a plate on, put your heels on top of the plate. You're ready to roll, literally, okay? So we're in our position. I just tucked my shoulders. So my scapula is flat on the floor. I'm using my elbows. I'm gonna dig my heels in and just lift my butt up. So look, I'm 2 inches, inch and a half. There's floor. There's up. That's all I need. Toes to neutral or point to the ceiling. That'll keep a dorsiflexion engagement for me. And I'm going to pull my heels towards my butt and roll them back out. Good control. Hamstring bite immediately. Okay. Now the reason I put glute roller or iso holds, you'll have some clients that can't curl this. And as soon as they'll start, they'll drop and go, oh, my hamstrings. And they'll start shaking their leg and trying to get it to loosen up, right? So in doing that, you're going to get that cramp because this muscle has not, these hamstrings have not had to pull, number one, at this angle or pull that hard before. The hamstring is a target like that for bridging, especially if your feet are elevated, or hamstring curling like this, where it's just like they've never been recruited. Like, let's look at the bridge. When you bridge, most people put their toes down. And so when you bridge, you're just quad pushing, right, as you go up. But as soon as we tilt the toes up and you ask them to dig their heels down into the floor and they pull their butt to the ceiling, all of a sudden they're like, holy cow, I've been doing this wrong the whole time. I'm like, yeah, your quads probably benefit a lot from it, but your hamstrings and your glutes are supposed to be pulling you to the up position. So a lot of the holds, as I just did here, is if you have a client that can't quite do the glute roller because they keep cramping, have them start, my butt's down, have them start here and just bridge up and hold it. And you'll get a lot. I mean, you can see my hamstrings there. You can see them going, right? They're on. And this is hard work because what happens is this, it starts to roll away. And they're like, I'm not gonna, I can't, no. And then they're down. Okay, take a second. They're like, no, that was terrible. How many more? And you're like, 9 more. And they're like, no way. So you bring back in. Up, hold it. And then slowly, what are they getting? Eccentric work. This is going to get them real strong, okay? Now, the other thing you can do is keep their butt down and let them just roll this guy, okay? And you're like, well, where's the repetition in that? Or what's the point in that? I feel hamstring, okay? It's not a lot, but I'm getting it, okay? And the other thing you can do with this, what I like about the tank is I can adjust the tension. There are glute rollers. I think Sornex makes one with adjustments on them that it makes the rolling more difficult, right? So you can do like a 1, 2, or 3. You can do that. A real simple modification for this, I know I'm running out of time here. Real simple version, you can just grab a band, anchor it, right? Anchor it to the floor or a rack or whatever you have in front, and then just loop this guy over the glute roller. So we put this guy just like that. And now as I pull it, it gets tighter, and then I get eccentric. I can keep my butt down and still get more work And as the hamstrings get stronger, I can combo reps like this with my butt down and iso holds with my butt up. And after 2, maybe 3, 4 workouts, you'll be able to do some regular reps. And I'm not talking a ton. Like they could do, 3 sets of 5 because they keep cramping. Eventually, this will get better. I've had 50 different clients, I promise you guys. Not just saying like, give it a go, I hope it'll work. We've had 50 clients, if not more. I've had hundreds of clients that do this. All of them do the same thing. Cramping, I can't do this. We practice, we work on the eccentrics, we work on the holds. Within a couple, 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks, we just do a little bit every time they're in. It's like our target. This month, we're gonna focus on this and get you good. And they can all do sets of 20, 25 now. And a lot of them, we're adding bands on with a full range of motion because the glute roller is like too easy now. Okay, so that's gonna give you some pretty good options on how to progress and kind of build. This is a sport that is fairly quad dominant in terms of what's powering me or stabilizing me, keeping me in place, but everything's working together, okay? You see tons of skiers, people that skied their whole life, massive quad dominant, but you have to think of both sides of the pulley. Their hamstrings are probably fairly strong, they're just not real big because they're not sitting in an eccentric hold the whole time like you are when you're skiing. So we need to train all the way around. Big hamstring, a lot of glute, a lot of quad, a lot of reps. We did highs, we did lows, and we did in between in the middles. Think of any of your split stance variations, like the angled split squat, a step up, a lunge, a split squat. Those are kind of middle range. You can't go as deep because your knee hits the floor at some point, right? But when I'm pulse squatting, I can go pretty deep. Okay, when I'm quarter squatting or stagger squatting, I'm kind of working the top half. So we work different angles of attack, different ranges. All right, I went a little long. I appreciate you all staying. I hope you enjoyed this. Just to give you one more look at who's coming. Myself, Lindsay Vastola, Dan John, Dan Ritchie, Dan McLean, our physical therapist, all 3 Dans will be here. Rick Howard, Grandpa Rick will be here. My brother, Evan Osar, Ryan Glatt from Brain Health, Diane Bailey from Tai Chi, Christian Thompson, Mr. Birdie himself will be in here talking about balance. It's going to be an awesome event. Shannon Fay will be talking business, and my buddy Pete McCall. I hope you all are able to come and join us. Head over to trainingtheolderadult.com to register if you'd like to come. As far as today goes, you guys all have access to this. You'll see the recording. You'll see the PDF from today. I will put that open Word document so you guys can make adjustments to that if you would like, but I'll give you that so you can go through it. And I will also put up those 2 articles, the 2 NSCA ones from Chat and from Jay. I'll make sure those get up there too. I'm happy to stay and answer questions if anybody has any. I see some very nice comments. I really appreciate you saying that. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And thank you so much for being here. If there's any questions, feel free to fire away. I'll stick around for another minute. If not, no worries. Thank you for giving me some extra time. I appreciate you. I love you all. And thank you very much for being here today. Take care, everybody. I'll give you another 30 seconds here in case anybody's typing. We'll bring up my exit music. What do we got on here? A little AC/DC. That's some good walk-off music. All right, what was the band start? So the band start was the home replication of the Skierg. So the band up high, thumbs up grip, hinge and pull, return, hinge and pull, return. Basically that is the Skierg if you don't have one. And I'll tell you that they both bring different challenges, but the band gets harder, right, on the way down. The Skierg tension's pretty much the same the whole time. You can go faster, it's much more comfortable with handles, all that. But the band work, I mean, talk about even just like your teres major, teres minor, all the little muscles in the back of the shoulder, you get a lot more with the band. So there's some pretty good benefit either way. They're both pretty solid. As long as you have one of those, 39 to 41 inch bands, any of the super bands, you've got a good option, a good way to do those Skiergs, okay, those ski starts. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, gang. Thinking of one last thing I wanted to tell you about. The injuries that I've seen, our clients are what motivate me to keep getting this better. I've been lucky. We've only had one client. Well, that's not true. We've had a lot of clients that have injured themselves, but in terms of like catastrophic injury, we've only had one, and it was Ruth. It was our Masters downhill skier. She was in like literally 3 foot of powder, like brand new hella skiing, you know, where they drop you off in the helicopter and you get to ski in a place where no one else has skied that season, like brand new, fresh powder. It was up to her hips. I mean, it was so thick. And as she was skiing, okay, and going back and forth, she was getting ready to turn, pushed down and away to make a turn, and in the snow was a giant boulder. And she hit that shit hard. It jammed her legs back up. She's very, very strong in her legs, and so her hips and everything stayed, and they absorbed a lot of the shock. But the tibia broke up through the top, shattered her patella, had a patella break, had a break of the edge of the femur. She had a lot of issues. She had a lot of issues there, and they had to completely reconstruct her knee. She wears a brace and still skis to this day, but does not ski in powder anywhere she can't see what's coming, and doesn't do nearly what she did, you know, in terms of, she was a downhill and Super G champ from, I want to say, like 50 to 54, not the years, like her years of age. She's not 100 and whatever she is, but she was an excellent skier, and that was definitely the most catastrophic injury we've had. I've had plenty of clients get concussions, or we've had some that broke their wrist when they fell, or they tore an MCL, something like that. But for the most part, most people were hurt before they came to me. We've had a very good success rate with our clients being strong and making it through the seasons. But I'll tell you, man, like there's so much, how hard the snow is, how sunny it is, how cold it was the night before. All that changes how fast, how slow they're going to go. Other people skiing into them, running into trees or rocks, you know, 1 foot going. There's so many things. I just hold my breath basically through ski season, because it just makes me nervous as shit. Like, it's just, from an individual that's been hurt a lot, I've been injured a lot, I just look at skiing and I'm like, man, why risk it? Like, I get it that you guys love it. Like, I'm so conflicted, because on the other side, I'm like, live your life. Go do the things you like to do. You know, don't be, I tell my kids, I'm like, don't be afraid, you know, be smart, but don't be afraid. You know, be thinking like, I might get hurt. Come on, who wants to live like that? But on the other side, I'm like, there's a lot of stuff to be worried about here. So I'm kind of conflicted. My point is as a strength coach, if all that, I need to prepare you for all that. I need to do everything I can to help that not happen. Or if it does happen, you survive it, you know, meaning it's not a catastrophic injury. You're just, maybe if we didn't do all this training, it would have been an ACL, MCL, your whole knee would have came apart, right? And instead it was just a meniscus tear, something like that. That's kind of my focus with this. It's just such a damaging sport. I mean, look at some of the wrecks, like Lindsey Vonn, watch her documentary. It's hard to see her go through the net, and like, anyhow, I know, again, super G and super speed and, you know, it's different than rec, but injuries happen. All right, team. I've taken enough of your time. I didn't see any other questions come up. And thank you again. A lot of you have made all of these. You've been to every one. I really appreciate the support in a very challenging year and a half now for a lot of us, for you to lend me an hour and 15 minutes and you know, take that out of your life. I really appreciate it. I hope none of you feel like I take that for granted. So thank you so much. Love you guys. Have a great day, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.